Okay, everyone, welcome. We're going to get started. Board of Adjustment meeting today, July 10th, and the time is 6:04 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Jamie, if we could do a roll call, please.
Mr. Cooper?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mead?
Here.
Ms. Rathburn? Here. Mr. Stressaw?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Chair Elfman?
Here.
And Mr. Hagopian, the alternate, is here.
Okay, thank you, and we have a quorum. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Bob?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mohammed, if I could have you also introduce who's there with you.
Good afternoon, Chair and board members. I have to my extreme left is Mark, our landscape architect, Shakila Crawford, Bert Ford, and I'm Muhammad Malik, and I have Sean, our assistant city attorney, and he's going to introduce himself. And one more. Karen over there from the city.
Thank you.
I could talk about this. Sean Emernani for the City Attorney's Office. I'm filling in for D. Wayne Spence, who's on a much-needed vacation right now. So happy to work with you. I've heard great things about the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot.
Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any corrections? Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there has been, before we get to the swearing in, there has been some request. Let me hit the request for deferral first. It was case number 5, case number 240-50002, request to defer. Anybody have any objection from the board? Okay, I responded here. If you want to.
Is there anybody here from the public to hear that case? Hopefully not. I guess my question, Mohammed, was how many times do we defer an item before the board and inconvenience the public that might come to speak on that item?
Which one was that?
That's going to be City of Fort Lauderdale, 5900 Hawkins Road.
It is up to the board to give extensions, and they vote on it. There is no specific set numbers.
That's the City of Fort Lauderdale. Have they submitted something saying why they need a 2-month deferral now?
No, so because the meeting was canceled last month, this will be their first.
So tonight's the second deferral.
Well, not really.
The city canceled the last meeting because of the rain event, and this is the first time they're asking for it.
And they didn't ask for a deferral for that meeting.
So they did.
So this is their second, but this is their second request. So they requested one for June, asking it to be deferred now, and now they're asking it for another, so it's a 2-month one? Is there, Mr. Chairman, is there anybody here from the city?
Yeah.
There is a representative.
What?
Water Resources, the design builder of the Prospect Lake Clean Water Center for the City of Fort Lauderdale. Before you this evening is a request for deferral. It's technically, I believe, our first requested deferral on the record because the hearing last month was canceled. Our requested deferral last month was due in large part due to questions raised by particularly the neighborhood to the north regarding the requested variance, and we wanted to take time to not only adjust the plans but also meet with them. So if anybody's listening to the meeting, we do have a HOA meeting scheduled with them for July 25th of this month, and then hope to come back before you in August for the requested variance.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I think that what they're doing is going to be better for the city and better for them, and I would make a motion that we approve the deferral.
Second.
Okay, Jamie?
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressa?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
And Chair Elfman?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Motion passes. Okay, Jamie, while you're at it, if you could please swear everyone in. Let me just let everybody know, each member of the public that wishes to speak after an item is presented and discussed by the board will have 3 minutes per item. Representatives of associations and groups will have 5 minutes. So if we could do our swearing in, please.
Anyone intending to speak, please stand and raise your right hand. Right hand. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give at this public hearing be truthful and accurate? Say yes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The board, there's a question, Doug? You have a request?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to hear case number 1 at the last.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to move case number 1 to the final case of this evening.
I think the reasoning is that it's going to be fairly lengthy, and I don't know that we need to inconvenience everybody else to listen to the debate as to whether or not the board made a decision 2 months ago.
No, maybe it's
This
not.
is item number 1.
Number 1.
The 1616 Southwest 17th Avenue. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
1616 Southwest 17.
Yes.
I'm good.
Yep, Jamie, if you could, please.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressa?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Chair Elfman?
Yes.
Passed 6-1.
Thank you. So the first case in front of us, case number 2404001, 2436 Cat K Lane. Responded. Please, if you could introduce yourself in relation to the property.
Good evening, my name is Mario Thatcher. I am the owner of the 2436 Cat K Lane.
Okay, and I'm sorry, right beforehand, let me just verify disclosures. Milton? Doug?
2 months ago.
I'm sorry, I just have to see which one this is. I do not have any.
Okay. Fred?
Site visit?
I had a site visit myself. Bob?
I don't believe I have. He's not talking to anybody.
Okay. Caldwell?
None.
Pat? Okay. Thank you. Sir, please go right ahead.
Thank you. So today, we're seeking a total of 4 variances, 3 for a rear shed that has stood in the same location for over 11 years, and an additional 4th variance for a sidewall that has stood for close to 70 years. So we purchased this property in 2022 with a 10 by 20 Lark prefab shed in the rear yard. A big part of the home's appeal was this additional 200 square feet that was sold to us as under air square footage. No open permits, no violations appeared in the title search, so we closed. A short time later, the city violated us because the prior owner made numerous upgrades without seeking the proper permits. So we hired a permit expediter, and he helped us close the majority of the violations. However, the rear shed still was a violation because it sits within the required setbacks on 3 sides. So we met with Mr. Ford, who was kind enough to give us copies of the file. And what did we learn? We learned that the rear shed is a manufactured by Lark and is a state-approved modular building. We found that the prior owner did pull a permit, although it was a 10 by 10 permit, in October of 2013, 11 years ago. And we found 2 photographs dated August of 2008 that depicts the exact dimensions of the shed in the exact location as it sits today for the duration of 11 years. So despite the discrepancy in the shed size, and despite sitting within the setbacks, the city approved the permit. and allowed it to remain in its current location. The inspector that approved the permit happened to be George Oliva, the city's current building and construction chief. So we're seeking the following variances to keep the shed in the same location it has been for the last 11 years. The side yard requires a 7.5-foot setback. We're asking for a reduction of 2.53 feet. The house requires a 10-foot separation. We're asking for a 1.1-foot variance. And then the side yard requires 5 feet, and we're seeking a total of 3 feet. My neighbor, whose house abuts the shed, he couldn't be here today because he's out of town, but he says he's had no problems with that shed at all, ever. There's never been a situation where it's been a negative impact on either him or the neighborhood. So it would be a great hardship, if we're required to remove the shed. We would love to move the shed if we had room. The lot is too narrow, and it just doesn't fit. And we also paid handsomely for the shed, and so we're asking that you approve those variances. The fourth variance that we're asking is a total reduction of 2.97 feet to allow an existing original house wall that was built in 1955 to remain in its location as a side yard. Typically requires 7.5 feet. So we pulled an after-built permit. We enclosed the carport and found that when the city built that utility closet, it was built 4.97 feet from the side, and rather than the required 7.5 feet. So staff researched the issue and concluded the following. The carport was enclosed but not enlarged to encroach the lateral setback, which is less than 7.5 feet. And the conclusion was, I think it's a pre-existing condition. So we asked that variance be approved as well to allow a 70-year wall that existed since the house was built to remain in an exact location. That's it.
In that case, we're going to have you stand by. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, we do. So, sir,
So there we have it's a design that's very prevalent in the neighborhood. There's a carport and a utility closet outside. And so we put one, it had a ceiling already and two sides. So all we did was close one side and the south side and the west side. And apparently, because when you make changes, I guess you have to comply with the current setback. Back then, when they built it 70 years ago, I guess it was 4.97. Now it's 7.5. So all I'm asking for is to be, I guess, grandfathered in or allowed to remain in the same location as it has, because I did not encroach, further into my neighbor's space.
So you enclosed the carport,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes.
Not the previous owner. You enclosed it,
I did that one, yes.
and you pulled a permit to do it, or you're
After
now
permit.
after the fact.
Yes, after
Okay.
the fact permit.
And my last question is: do you have any pictures of the interior of the shed?
Yeah.
What's the current use of it?
Storage?
Okay.
Yeah, because initially we were told it cannot be anything but storage, even though the prior owner had it staged as an office, a bonus room, all that, and that's why there's a lawsuit against them. And so I was duped. And so all I wanted is that 200 square foot to remain, because I paid handsomely for it. And I'm going to use it as a shed, which is what's consistent with, Fort Lauderdale. You have anything?
Pat?
Yeah, has anybody looked into see whether the side yard setback was 5 feet when this was built?
No, and I don't honestly think that we have to. We know that we researched that there's a permit for it. The plans show it, that is where it was permitted to be, so we consider it legal non-conforming.
Okay, so
Where it
we can
sits.
sort of assume that at the time it was built, 5 feet was the setback,
Yeah, probably.
and they inched into that a little bit.
And surveying back then may not have been as good as it was
Yeah, but it
today.
wasn't 2.5 feet, it was,
Yeah, no.
Milton?
Yes, I have a question with regards to you pulling a permit after you had enclosed it in, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and when you did that, did you follow all of the code?
I'm sorry.
When you did that, did you follow the code? I mean, you pull a permit after you had put the wall up.
Yes, sir. We hired an expediter who helped us with the prior ones and with the new, and with the carport as well. Yeah, there was no plumbing, electrical, anything. It was just literally 2 walls. That's it. No plumbing, no electrical, nothing else. It was 2 CBS.
Picture of that on your, of the before. One picture on each phone.
Hey, this is just a reminder from a legal standpoint that this needs to be made part of the record, so if they
How do we
can
do that?
send that to us, that
We
would
can
help.
email it?
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Bob.
That phone that just got passed around, that's the interior of that shed?
That's the interior that I purchased it as.
Well, it's not a shed, that's a living quarters, it looks like.
Right.
It's a guest room.
They sold it to me as a office.
And it's not air conditioned?
He put an AC as well.
Does that comply with city?
But the AC, but there is no AC right now. We took it out. We wanted to comply, and so we wanted to make sure that nobody believed that it was a living quarter. It's not. It's a storage, but he just decked it out with drywall and lights and an AC.
Well, what else is in there? Other than, you said it's just storage. Okay, it seems like it's a living quarter.
It was living quarters as we were sold. We now have a lawsuit against the seller because it's not. We learned that it's an accessory building and can only be used as a shed. So therefore, we're going to be using it as a shed. But I paid for it as under air square footage. So I have to sue them because they duped me, basically.
So what you're saying, sir, is this is what it was, but now it is a shed with just storage?
That's right.
Okay. And no air conditioning. So if you could, we'll also need you to forward to the city a copy of what we just looked at.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. So you're telling me that with all of those beautiful purses and shoes, it's not air conditioned?
No, we took it out. But that's not the shed, that's
This is carport.
That's the carport. Oh, I thought that was,
Take it out and have 2 lovely stands.
okay.
Okay. Anybody else need to see that, or?
I think
Doug?
just, city attorney wants to remind you that you have to email those pictures to us because they're part of the public record.
I can do it right now.
We can do it right now. What's?
I'm sending you an email.
Okay.
This is your carport.
Never had anybody so prepared.
No.
You have a picture of the carport before you closed it in.
Sure, from Wilson. Here's your phone.
While we're getting more pictures, is there any other questions that we have? And Doug will hold on that.
So what's at
Milton?
issue is the carport and the shed.
Yes, sir. 3 variances for the shed and 1 for the carport to remain in its location as it always has been.
All right, can we go back to our
This is out of order.
seats, and this is kind of distracting for the meeting, and we're not moving it forward.
Okay, if you
Yeah,
could,
come on.
give the phone back. Okay. Hold on a second. Milton, I'm going to let you finish, then Bob, then Pat.
I think I'm finished.
Okay, Bob?
So surmise your comments to the fact that what are the unique hardships? Obviously, you've had some issues with purchasing the property. Well, what are your unique hardships that you require these variances?
We can't move the shed. If we were able, if the lot was a little bigger, I'll move it to 3 feet, the 1 foot, I just can't because you move it and it violates, then it's too close to the house. You move it towards the water, then it's too close to the water. So the lot is not big enough to put it in a proper place where the setback is not violated.
Any other questions, Bob?
And there's nothing you can do physically to reduce the size of that structure?
No, you can't, no, it's one full whole structure. It's not in pieces or two pieces or anything like that.
Okay, is there any other questions from the board?
I got a question.
Go ahead, put your microphone on. There you go.
Just so closing the carport, which I know is not part of this, that was fully permitted, and that is now part of your house.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've heard it. Sir, you can have a seat. We're going to bring it back to the board for a vote. So any discussion back at the board level, or do we want to make a motion?
We're going to be here all night. I'll make a motion, we approve each one of the 4 applications in the variance at one time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, it's roll call. Jamie?
Now, this is just a motion
To
to
hear them
vote
at
on them
once.
all together, not
Yes.
to actually approve them all right now.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressoff?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
And Chair Elfman?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you.
7-0.
Okay, next case, case number 24. Oh, I thought that was for the, sorry.
Now we need a motion.
Right.
This is why I need some of your coffee, Milton. Okay.
Wait a second, hold on.
That
So-
was just to hear them all at once.
Correct.
It wasn't to approve them,
With that,
right?
Yeah, the motion was to
That's what
approve
you
all
clarified.
4 of them.
Oh, I thought your motion was to approve.
combine them.
Combine, the way you read it, Jamie, it was to combine them.
The question I asked was
Yeah.
just to combine, and he said yes.
Right, that was.
But you meant that to be to approve
It was
all of
about
them.
to
Okay.
combine them.
Okay, so that was the vote to combine them then.
I'm gonna make a
So
motion
let's
that
make
we
a new motion.
approve the requested variances.
Second.
Because they meet the criteria for the granting of a variance because of a unique and special hardship not created by the property owner.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, now.
Okay. Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressoff?
Yes.
Chair Elfman?
Yes.
4-3.
Does not pass because it's 4-3 and they need 5, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right, next case. Case number 2404002. Property address 1329 Southwest 9th Street. Do we have a respondent? Went to the restroom? Okay. In the meantime, you know what?
Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, we're going to move to the next case. We're going to move to case number 4, case number 2405001, 84 Isle Bahia Drive. Stephanie? And is there any disclosures? Milton?
No, I don't have any.
Doug?
Hey, Chair, just a reminder for the board, if you are going to speak up there, IT is telling us that they're not getting all the conversation, so just make sure your microphone is on if you're speaking from up top, okay?
I went by the location.
Fred?
Thank you.
None.
Okay, I did a site visit and also spoke to council. Bob?
No, council has a call in the meeting, and I was unable to return it at work hours.
Okay. Caldwell?
Spoke to council.
Pat?
Nothing.
Okay. Stephanie, you're on.
Well, good evening, Board. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. This was on your agenda last time, and of course, we all got flooded out, so we're happy to be here this evening. I'm here on behalf of the applicants, David and Melissa McNeil. They are the owners of this property at 84 Isla Bahia.
What number is this?
This is in Harbor Beach. You can see here on the aerial that I'm showing you, the property is at 84 Isla Bahia Drive at one of the end cap properties that faces in an odd direction. It's not completely east, it's not completely west. I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper. So the McNeils purchased this property in 2020. The property was, it must have been a spec house. The property was already under construction. It had been issued a permit by the city of Fort Lauderdale. It was already under construction, and they purchased it as a almost completed property. You can see here one thing that's very, it's not completely uncommon, but it's not entirely common either, where you see a property that sits on a cul-de-sac, so it doesn't have really a true front yard and doesn't have true side yards. And in this case, what they discovered after the fact, after they had already closed on the property, and I'll show you on a later slide, but that there is a balcony that is slightly into the setback. The existing unenclosed balcony. Unenclosed balconies are permitted in the setback. This one goes a little bit further than what's permitted. So it's approximately 357 square feet, and due to the property being on a waterway on two sides, they have two very large setback requirements, that set it back to 25 feet as opposed to some properties that have a 10-foot setback on their side. So in this case, you have a front yard of 25 feet, which it meets. You have a minimum corner yard, 25 feet abutting a waterway. Side yards are permitted at 10 feet, and then rear yards, which this property was deemed to have two rear yards, is required to have 25-foot setbacks on both rear yards. So as I'm showing you here, two rear yards. I think that's where the mistake came in. So there are two variance requests. What happened is when the McNeils, Mrs. McNeil is actually a painter. She's a very accomplished painter. She sits on the board of the Museum of Art, and there's a portion of the property that when they purchased it, she had intended to enclose it for an art studio. So they went to the city and said, we'd really like to enclose this existing space, second floor balcony. It's got the right sunlight, and we'd like to enclose it. And the city said, there's actually a small piece of your balcony that is in the required setback, in the 25-foot setback. Now, going back to the code does permit balconies, unenclosed balconies, to be in the setback up to 3 feet. This one exceeds it by 0.08. So the first 0.8 of a foot. So the first variance that we're requesting is for the existing unenclosed balcony that was a discovered condition after they closed. So they were not the builders. They purchased the property as a property that was already under construction. So that's the first variance that's before you this evening for an existing condition. And I'm showing you here, you can see, so that is, that creates a setback of 21.2 instead of the 25, but only 0.8 of 1 foot is the actual variance that is necessary for an existing condition. The second variance that is requested, and again, they are permitted to enclose their balcony, and they are permitted to enclose a majority of the balcony without requesting a variance. But because the existing balcony was discovered after the fact to be 0.8 of a foot into the required 25-foot setback, they are requesting to enclose the second floor balcony with mostly glass to create a painting studio that would then require a setback of 3 feet 8 inches. Again, because the unenclosed balcony is permitted to be 3 feet into the setback, but when you enclose it, you need the variance for the entire corner of the space, not the entire balcony. The majority of the balcony is outside the setback, and as I said, that is permitted to exist in its current location. It's just that small corner that we're highlighting in red that requires the variance request. So here's a picture of the balcony, and I think you can see it's beautifully designed. It's a beautiful home. This is facing south. This is the actual balcony, and as I said, the majority of that is not in the setback. It's just the extreme corner of the balcony that is. And you can see how far it is across the water from the neighbors, and I do have letters of support from the neighbors. So again, here's the balcony. It was always intended to be an art studio. It just was discovered when it was actually the architect that submitted plans, and it was discovered at that time that there was a small portion of that balcony that is in the setback. And here it is, just facing east.
And another image of the second floor balcony, and just some more images. I included these pictures. I wouldn't normally include the sign posting, but I think the reason that this is relevant is when you see where the signs were posted, how incredibly far away the other homes are. The context of the overall property, it's very, very, very far away from any of its neighbors. Oops, sorry. And the properties that are immediately adjacent to them are all under construction. You can see we highlighted in blue the dot. There's a large lot that's adjacent to this property that's under construction with a very large home, and another one next to that that's also a very large home. Beautiful homes, and here's some other properties that are all under construction at the same time. So we do believe that this meets all the criteria of a variance. As I said, the balcony is existing. It was discovered after the fact that a 0.8 of a foot of the balcony was actually in the setback. We are asking to enclose the balcony, as I said, for second floor. It would be predominantly glass, so it would not be intrusive on the neighbors. And as I said, enclosing the balcony is actually already permitted. It's just that small corner of the balcony that would require the variance. The circumstances which cause the special conditions are peculiar to the property at issue, and such a small number of properties that they clearly constitute marked exceptions. As I said, the existing balcony faces northwest. It does create a special condition and opportunity for Mrs. McNeil to do her painting. The applicant requests to enclose the balcony for the protection from the elements. As I said, it was always planned to be enclosed. It was discovered after the fact that it was that a small portion of it was in the setback. The applicant did not design the house. They did not construct the house. They purchased it as a house that was already under construction. Without knowledge, and also without knowledge that the city was going to make the interpretation that it has 2 rear yards, which creates the additional setback requirement. It created a special circumstance that does not allow the use of the balcony for its intended use. The literal application of the provisions of the ULDR, we believe, would deprive the applicant of an opportunity to use this portion of the property for its intended use. It's not a money issue. Doesn't have anything to do with costing more money or anything like that. It was just that was what the intention of the applicants was. We also, it was obviously not self-created. I think this is a really good slide because it shows a couple things. Number one, you can see it's from its most affected neighbor. It's 155 feet away, and we do have a letter of support from that neighbor. And the neighbor that is adjacent on the left-hand side, it's actually blocked, even as enclosed, it's actually blocked from view by the existing house. And the other house that is the neighbor faces in the other direction. And that neighbor has also written a letter of support, and all of that is part of the package that we have submitted. They're not asking to extend the structure. As I said, a small portion of that structure is already existing. They are asking to enclose it. And again, the majority of that structure is not in the setback. It's just a very small corner, as we had noted on an earlier slide. The criteria, we've gone through this very carefully with the applicant and also with the architect. As you can see, and I think this is an important slide as well, you can see that the majority of that structure is outside of the setback. It's not, it's just that small corner that is, that requests the variance. And again, it's a 0.8 of a foot for the existing structure and 3.8 for the enclosure itself, because once you enclose it, then you do need the variance for the entire corner. So we are respectfully requesting a variance for these 2 conditions. I thought it would be helpful to see from the inside. It's adjacent to their master bedroom, so that's the area that's to be enclosed. And the architectural drawings showing that's entirely glass, so there's a lot of sunlight, so it would be non-intrusive. And again, these are the letters of support for the property owner that would be the one that would actually see it, and also a letter of support from the property owner that is to our left. This is just a previously approved variance. It's very similar to the variance that was asked for, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to have you stand by. I'm going to ask if there's anybody and open the public hearing. So is there anybody from the public wishes to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Anybody from the board have a question? We'll start with Caldwell, and we'll put you next up.
Council, question. This 3 feet you're looking for the variance on, how many total square feet is that? For that triangle, or approximately how many square feet?
That is a good question. I don't know if I have that exact. I don't know that we did that. That's a really good question. I apologize. I don't know the answer, and I don't want to guess.
Well, I mean, are we talking 5 square feet, or are we talking 500 square feet?
Oh, it's like less than 5 square feet. It's tiny.
How long is that wall, the long wall, where it encroaches? I mean, the point is what encroaches. So coming off the sliding glass doors, how long is that whole length?
Against a solid wall?
Yes, against the solid wall.
I don't know. Do we have the house plans by any chance? 21 feet.
So at what point are we cut off? 10 feet, 15 feet? At what point is that infringing on the 25-foot setback?
So nothing, the only portion from, maybe this is the better, basically if you look at the tile on the floor, it's the last corner tile is the variance area.
So basically 2 feet or
2
4
feet.
feet. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's it.
That's the whole
That's
corner that is cutting through.
Correct. The rest of the entire balcony is not in the setback and can be enclosed without coming to this board. That's correct.
Pat?
I'm really fascinated by the answers to the criteria for approval. And that is that it's special circumstances affect the property which prevent the reasonable use of the property. Seems like that's a pretty big house. And what you're saying in response is the balcony remaining open does not allow the applicants to reasonably use the property.
For the studio. That's correct. That's
Well,
correct. They can use it.
That's not part of the criteria. They can't use it for what they want to use it for, but it certainly is not a special condition that makes the reasonable use of this property inconsistent with what's there now. And the second part of the responses to the criteria are circumstances are peculiar to the property at issue. And your response is the existing balcony is spacious and faces northwest, which creates a special circumstance due to the direct sun intrusion in the afternoon evening.
I think
I think that the sun shines everywhere in Florida, and you're saying that they want to enclose the balcony for protection from the elements in the sun, but at the same time, I believe I heard you say that this is going to be all glass, so it would get a lot of sun. So either they're trying to protect themselves from the sun or they're not, and in neither case do I think that the sun creates a special circumstance.
I apologize. When I reread what was submitted, it's actually altered in the presentation.
But that's what you said. I mean, as part of your presentation, that's what I heard you say, is that they're unique and special circumstances because they can't use this balcony what they wanted to use it for. And the fact is that the use of the balcony, it was designed as a balcony. The fact that they don't want to use it as a balcony wasn't part of the original design. It was designed to be a balcony, which it is. They want to use it for something else. So it is them causing this situation because they want to use it for something.
They didn't design the house, was what I was trying to say.
When someone designed the house, it was designed as a balcony and was built as a balcony.
Correct.
Now they want to change the use to something else, which, we all want to improve our lives, whatever. But I just don't see that you've met the criteria or they've met the criteria.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I was looking on sheet A-01, which is part of the permit set, and it shows in the first floor plan that the column that supports the balcony is within the appears to be within a 25-foot rear yard setback, but I think you're telling us that encroaches by 9 inches or something like that.
It's not the column, it's the corner of the balcony itself that encroaches.
I'm after the column. That's the only thing I'm after, is that the column sits within the setback.
I don't know if that's accurate. Right, I don't believe the column is in the setback.
That's correct.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm not sure where the 0.8 of a foot is.
It's the very corner of what, if you look at the image,
Yeah.
you can see that the balcony comes out further than the column.
I'm with you on that.
I believe she said it comes out 3 feet.
Microphone, Doug.
But 3 feet.
Microphone.
Oh,
It
3
comes out
feet
3
is
feet 8
permitted.
inches, but
3
3
feet is
feet is
permitted.
permitted.
Got it.
That's where the
Okay.
8 inches comes from.
Okay,
The
so I
balcony's
guess my
actually 3.5.
question is, I intend to agree that from the architectural standpoint, that what is proposed seems to make some sense, but if that balcony on both sides of the balcony was pulled back a couple of feet or a foot, it would all sit within the required setback. It's just, they don't get the other 25 square feet. Do I make myself clear?
I think what you're saying is to tear it down and reconstruct it?
No, all I said was that the glass enclosure that they've shown could be pulled back from the existing beam that forms the perimeter of this balcony by 1.5 feet or something, and pull it back and enclose the same space and get about 85 or 90% of the area.
So the balcony unenclosed, so there's two variances, one for the existing condition.
Right.
Unenclosed, you need a variance of 0.8 of a foot. Not quite a foot, 0.8 of a foot.
You're saying just for the corner though, not the whole length of the balcony, am I correct?
You'd have to tear it down and rebuild it. You'd have to, without the variance of the 0.8.
In this case, we're not going to tear anything down. What we're trying to suggest is that there is a solution that encloses a smaller portion of the balcony that could be constructed within the required setback.
Right, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay. What you have there now needs very little, 0.8 inch, it cuts into it. But if you built your second floor walls 2 or 3 feet in the side, you are within you don't have that cutout piece.
Oh, so you're saying leave some dead
basically
space?
Basically leave an 18 inch or 2
balcony.
foot overhang that doesn't have your vertical wall.
So
Put your vertical wall in on one side.
Build a wall further in and leave dead
Yes,
space
basically, yeah.
around.
Yes.
You could do that. I think
It's not exactly
wouldn't
what
be-
they want.
I think
But-
it would look weird. I think it would affect the architectural. I mean,
As opposed to not getting it at all, that might be a solution.
but again, there's no variance required for that. They can enclose the balcony
Not
if
the
they
whole
don't
thing.
go into the setback.
Right. So this is a way they can do it and not require
They would not need
They
any
would not
variance.
need anything to-
Wouldn't need anything, right.
Caldwell?
So, I think this is getting misconstrued, or I'm misunderstood. We're discussing a corner of the balcony.
Yep.
Fred's talking about a foot, the length of the balcony. What are we discussing here? Because we have just over 3/4 of a foot that you're asking a variance on, and then 3 feet. The 3 feet, is that for the entire length of the balcony, or are we just discussing that corner?
The red
So
part.
it's the red part. So the balcony, when it's not enclosed, does not require a variance to be 3 feet into the setback.
Understood.
That's permitted.
Okay.
There's a tiny, literally not even this big of a piece that requires a variance for the existing condition because when the builder built it, it went a little too far.
Right.
So that requires a variance for existing condition. When you enclose the balcony, you need a variance for the entire 3 feet. So it goes back to the corner tile, basically. You need a variance
Correct, but
to
we're
not
just
cut off the.
discussing a corner, not the entire length.
That's correct. It's just that
On both
corner.
variances, we're just discussing a corner.
That's correct.
One's 3/4 of a foot, the other one's 3 foot.
That's correct.
So at the end of the day, the homeowner's gonna build this regardless, whether they get the variance or not. One's gonna look correct, and the other one's gonna look a little cattywampus.
That's a good word.
So
Their choice.
either way, take a beautiful home and continue it beautiful, or approve the minimal request for a couple square feet on a corner that nobody sees. Am I correct? Okay.
Doug, still?
No.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
We'll bring it back to the board for motion or any further discussion.
Excuse me, there's two variances. One is simply to allow the existing structure as is to remain 3.8 feet.
0.8 of a foot.
Well, 3.8 though,
No,
but the
point-
8 point.
0.8 of a foot
To
is the
allow the
variance.
existing structure to encroach, I thought you said, for a total encroachment of 3.8 feet.
3 feet is permitted.
Right, but the total encroachment would be 3.8.
Correct, but the variance is only for 0.8 of a foot.
Okay, so that is, I'd like to hear these separately, if you don't mind.
I was going to
one is,
recommend that.
That is to allow an existing structure, unenclosed balcony to be 0.8 feet into the existing setback. That's your first request, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and your second request, I'm not sure where the enclosure part comes in. So the second request is to request a 25-foot minimum rear setback to a decrease of 3.8.
Yeah, she's still asking
Yeah,
questions.
but I mean,
So
if
we'll
if
vote
we
separate.
allow the first one for the existing structure, then you've got a variance and you can build what you want to build on that variance.
No. No. The way the code is drafted, balconies, when they are not enclosed, can go 3 feet into the setback. So that's all over the city of Fort Lauderdale. You
Okay.
see that condition.
Okay, so the first one would be to allow an unenclosed balcony to encroach 0.8 feet into the setback.
0.8 of 1 foot.
Okay, yeah, all right, I'm sorry.
8
0.8
tenths of a foot. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Fred?
I was gonna say, let's vote on that one and get that one completely out of the way, I think.
Well, right now, if, I'm going to let Stephanie sit if there's no more questions for her, and then we'll vote it. And we're going to bring them up separately.
So what?
Is there anything else for Stephanie? I'm sorry,
Yes.
Doug, if you're talking there, put your microphone on.
Sorry. So you don't have any of your drawings here that actually show a blow up of the sign? I mean, that could be half the balcony, or it could be 2 feet. We don't know. You said it's 2 feet, but you also said you didn't know. So we don't really know how much of the balcony is encroaching within the 25 feet.
No, we do. So the balcony.
Okay. Can you show it to me?
Yes, it's in this. So 3 feet of the balcony is permitted by code, and the extreme corner of that, which is not quite a foot, which is 8 tenths of a foot, is what the variance would be for. We're showing you the entire corner that is the whole 3 feet, but much of that is already permitted by code.
Right, okay. Okay.
Okay, is there any more questions? Pat, anything else? Okay, Stephanie, thank you again.
Thank you.
And going to bring it back for a vote or any further discussion. And as it's been said a couple times, let's hear them separately. Pat, while your microphone's...
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the first variance, which I guess is 4719-2B, to allow an encroachment of an existing balcony 0.8 of a foot into the, is it rear yard or side yard?
Rear yard.
Into the rear yard setback. While I don't believe that they've met the criteria for the granting of a variance, I also believe that it's a de minimis encroachment, and that part wasn't their fault. They bought it like that, and so for that reason, I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, let's roll call that one first, Jamie.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stresslaw?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
And Mr. Chair Elfman?
Yes,
Passed 7-0.
thank you. On the second motion, does anybody have I'm sorry, on the second section, does anybody have a motion?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a legal question. Okay, right now it is a open balcony and you're good.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Are you, okay. All right, whatever. Okay. But If you build a second anything on that, it's now no longer a open balcony. It's now a cantilevered room. So can you build that, or
Yes.
So you can build it inside?
We can build it except for that corner.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion for the second one?
I have a question before we have a motion.
Go ahead.
So, let me understand this, and maybe Bert, you're the person. If you have a balcony, it's allowed to encroach 3 feet into the setback. But now you're not gonna have a balcony, you're gonna have a room. Is a room allowed to encroach 3 feet into the setback?
No.
Okay.
It's not. That's why we have the second variance. The first one was just for the balcony.
Right.
And balcony could have been there and it's
Right.
in the setback, this first one. But the second one, which is enclosing it, it would be,
Right, so right
whatever
now-
the small triangle is, that's where it,
Okay, so this is not permitted to be there, and we would need a 3.8-foot variance to allow them to enclose it.
yeah. If you see the picture, all the yellowish area in that picture, they are allowed to build the new structure within that, the yellow highlighted one. The small green area, that's where they can't build it.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion to deny the request for 47- criteria for the granting of the variance, in that the property certainly can be reasonably used, and the sun does not consist of a hardship.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Caldwell?
It's not often you all hear me speak up about an item when I'm saying it's minuscule, guys. You know, we're over discussing sun and the way the council has drafted the reasoning for why it should be done, and we're kicking a can down the road for I don't know what. Regardless, they're building it. So I've said my piece.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Also, it's just, we're dealing over, 21 feet? And it's a subject of private property rights, I believe, and there might be some conflict with code, but there's no opposition from the neighbors as far as I'm aware of, and I think it's crazy that we're even discussing it.
Okay, and I've also had a request to call the vote, so Jamie, this is a motion to deny.
So yes, just to deny.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Jones? Yes. Mr. Mead? To deny.
To deny? No.
Ms. Rathburn? Yes. Mr. Stressor?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
No.
Chair Elfman?
No.
Failed 3-4.
Thank you.
So we need a vote in the affirmative to
Yes.
confirm, correct?
Correct. According to the state statutes, we actually need to vote for the affirmative. Since the last one failed, we would take the opposite vote. So if somebody wants to make a motion or make a motion to vote again, denying, but somebody needs to make a motion.
Actually, you have to vote in the affirmative to deny.
Well, Caldwell, while
Correct.
your light's on, did you want to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
So we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Okay, Jamie?
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Ms. Rathburn? No. Mr. Stressor?
No.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes?
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Chair Elfman?
Yes.
It still failed 3-4. You need 5 to pass.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant here for 1329 Southwest 9? Okay. So the next case, case number 3, case number 24040002, 1329 Southwest 9th Street. And ma'am, have you been sworn in?
I stood up when everybody else
Okay,
did.
great.
Right?
Thank you,
That was
yes.
right? Okay.
Have to go like that. You're not being held
I
up.
swear, I swear.
Yes, and if you could, please just state your name and
Yep.
relation to the property.
Yeah, good evening. Is it okay to start? That's fine. Ready?
Yes, case number 3.
Good?
Yes, it's okay to start.
I know, I'm
Please.
sorry. I had to use the restroom, so I apologize.
It happens. So, I'm sorry, did you already state your name? And
No, my name is Andrea Stevens. I'm the owner at 1329 Southwest 9th Street. And just to give a background, I've lived the majority of my life in Riverside Park. 10 years ago, I purchased my home. That's the 1329. We decided about a year and a half ago to build our forever home in order to have room for our toddler to grow. And what we are requesting today is to not have to install the sidewalk because it would require the removal of 3 mature oak trees. We would like to preserve the appearance of the Riverside Park community and our yard because of these beautiful trees. And our street is not a main road. 100% of the properties on our street do not have sidewalks, and the majority of the neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks, over 80%. Our Riverside Park Association, along with Daniel Ray from Land Development Manager, he supports our request. The letters were submitted with our packet, so you have those along with all the pictures of our property. I also took pictures of the neighbors around us so everybody could see that. And that is the basis of what we are asking today.
Thank you. Before we go into public hearing, I did forget disclosures, so Milton? Okay, Doug?
No. Site visit?
Okay, I had a site visit as well. Bob?
None.
Colbo?
None.
Pat? None. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Okay. If you'd like to, please come up and we'll have you state your name and your property address. And you were sworn in as well, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Estelle Brennan. I am the president of Riverside Park Residents Association, and I am here to support Ms. Stevens' request to keep the oak trees on her property. I did submit a letter from our association to you all back prior to the June meeting. I believe Karen at least said that you guys had received it. I brought a minimal amount of copies that I'm happy to pass around for those of you that might need a refresher, but I'll just highlight a little bit of what's in the letter. And thank you all for what you guys do here. It's really hard. So please save our oak trees and neighborhood from further flooding and do not require sidewalk installation at 1329 Southwest 9th Street. The Riverside Park Residents Association Board voted unanimously on May 14th to support Andrea Stevens' request to not install a sidewalk in the front of her property. The neighborhood, the homeowners, and developer are all in agreement that a sidewalk should not be required. The association has worked nonstop with transportation mobility for the last 7 years. I have been working directly with Karen Warfel on a sidewalk plan throughout Riverside Park. Ms. Stevens' property in that street are not included in that plan purposefully. We were very strategic in where we want sidewalks in Riverside Park. We're a major cut through from Broward to Davie Boulevard, and we also have a high school in our neighborhood. As Ms. Stevens pointed out, there is a large majority of our streets in East Riverside that don't contain sidewalks, but a lot of them are dead-end streets, rarely used streets, and they contain a majority of our tree canopy in Riverside Park. Her neighbor directly to, I guess you could say, the northeast around the corner on Southwest 12th Ave has a specimen oak tree that is well over 100 years old, maybe even 200 years old. Those roots definitely go into her property. But the installation of sidewalks would be sidewalks to nowhere. There's no sidewalks on her street. There are no sidewalks on the turn on 12th Avenue, nor are there any in the plan that we've been working on with TAM for the last 7 years. So I ask that you please take that into consideration. Our tree canopy is, one of our identities in Riverside Park, and we strongly support her request to save these specific trees. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. We're going to bring it back to the board for any questions or discussion. I did want to make one comment, though, and this was from a site visit, and not that I'm objectionable, because I realize that there is nobody else on your street that has sidewalks. However, I believe that the intention behind the requiring sidewalks is it needed to start at some time if it was going to start, and the street has a lot of new construction homes. The only concern I had is if somebody was on your side of the street, in the street, you're right at the corner where there's a blind spot, I guess, from the neighbor building out, and if there was nowhere for somebody to walk, it's very easy for somebody to get hit if they were coming through. So I don't know if you'd want to talk to your neighbor about trimming that down to make it a little safer, but I know there's a lot of new homes being built in the neighborhood, and there is no sidewalks at this time. So that's just an observation. Okay, but Caldwell.
Yeah, I don't normally do this, but Fred, it's probably been 25 years, but this is right up your alley. I know you love trees, and I know you're really creative on figuring this out. So, since I don't have a depiction on our packet on where exactly the trees are and the sidewalk goes, could you help me along?
From my site visit, which you guys would better understand each of these applications if you'd go look, so you're being admonished there. It would be impossible for them to put a sidewalk in this area without removing a couple of the trees. And I noticed that our landscape architect is disappeared, which is unfortunate. Oh, well then we'll sit here and twiddle our thumbs till he comes back. Does somebody send a messenger to him? I guess I drove through the neighborhood because I couldn't get out. I love it. And the code addresses the fact that sidewalks can be eliminated in some cases where they are on streets that are dead ends. And your street and several of the streets come pretty close to being dead-end streets because people are just going around in circles. Very successful traffic plan, actually.
We want to keep the neighborhood private.
I looked, and I didn't go out and measure anything, but I think that there's almost no sidewalks in your neighborhood at all. There's a couple of new developments that might have put in 100 linear feet, but other than that, there aren't any sidewalks. So I think that what they're asking for is in line with what the site requires. And if Mark was here, he'd say that the tree barricades that they put around the trees that are exhibited in their application show exactly why you can't build a sidewalk there. So I guess I'm kind of gung-ho for this one.
Okay. Is there any other questions of the applicant? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. We're going to bring it back to the board for a vote. Does anybody have a motion they'd
I'll
like
make
to
a motion to approve the variance as requested, that it's the minimum variance necessary.
Just for your reminder, this is a special exception application, so it's not a variance, and it's not at the level of a variance. It's a special exception.
That requires a simple majority, isn't it? Not.
Well, it doesn't require them meeting the criteria for the granting of a variance because it's a special exception.
It still requires.
Special exception is by.
It still requires a +1 because it is a motion for the board, but it's not procedural, but it doesn't have the heightened standard of the variance standards. So basically it's a special exception, and if you look in your agenda packet in the red, it describes the property owner shall have the burden of demonstrating that a unique circumstance particular to the property at issue exists that would otherwise preclude the installation of sidewalk in the specific location. So
I guess what I'm referring to is the actual vote.
Correct. It's
still
+1. It's still +1. Still +1.
It's a majority.
So
+1.
I'm revising my motion.
Not a super majority, as would be required by a variance.
Sorry, a majority +1.
Okay. So
it is a super majority.
Yes.
Okay. That's right. We're going to go our vote. Pat, go ahead, please.
My motion is to grant the special exception because the applicant has demonstrated that there are unique circumstances which would prohibit the installation of sidewalks without the removal of beautiful trees.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay.
Do we need to wait on city staff or something, or are we good?
I think we're good.
We're good.
He's stuck.
Pun intended.
Okay, Jamie.
Mr. Mead? Sorry, Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Ms.
Dinner's
Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stresa?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Chair Offman?
Yes. Motion
Seven
passes.
zero.
Thank you very
Looks
much.
looks like you're leaving before we have dinner. You seen the pizza just came in?
I did. So, Doug, did you have a request earlier? Were you making an observation? Did you say you needed a break or not? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought I heard that. Okay, next case. Sorry, just trying to get into order here. So next case will be case number 6, case number 240500003, 1123 Southwest 5th Place. And I'm sorry, not case number 6, item number 6. And let's start with any disclosures. Milton?
I don't have any.
Okay, Doug?
I went by this, I think.
Okay. Fred?
Site visit.
I had a site visit as well. Bob?
None.
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 Yeah, this is a notice to the board again. This is a special exception for this one as well.
Thank you, Sean. And I'm sorry, Cole, you said none?
No.
Okay, and Pat, none as well? Okay, thank you. Sir, hi, please state your name and relation to the property, and were you sworn in?
Yes, I was.
Okay, then you're up.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Chris Shermer, and I own the property at 1123 Southwest 5th Place. It's in the same neighborhood as the most recent special exception you just considered. I own it along with my wife, and we bought it for our family home. It's a very similar situation, except I don't have beautiful trees. I have an electrical pole right in front of the house.
We put those in the middle sidewalks.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the other clarification is that there is actually sidewalks on the other side of the street from my house, because I live across the street from Riverside Park. So if Riverside Park is a rectangle and you drew a larger rectangle that has the exterior of the street, on the exterior of all of those homes, there are no sidewalks, but on the interior there is sidewalks around the perimeter of the park. So people can walk around the park. There is parking on the outside of that as well, and there's a curb, but on the outside of all the homes, there is no sidewalk or curbs. So it would just be a floating sidewalk in front of my home, which would be a little weird looking. I don't mind adding it, but again, it would go right into an electrical pole that would need to be removed, or something would need to happen. So for those reasons, we're respectfully requesting a special exception. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I put a lot of pictures, not necessarily in front of the house. A lot of those pictures show other homes that would need things removed if there was sidewalks put in front of their house. So.
Thank you. And actually, part of my notes showed that sidewalks were on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
And not your side.
All the way around the park.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Yes. Please come up. You could come up again, and we'll let you introduce yourself again, and you could give the same speech again if you'd like. It's up to you. Okay.
She doesn't look bashful.
All right, Estelle Brennan, president of Riverside Park. Again, I sent a letter supporting Mr. Shermer's request to not install sidewalks at his property on Southwest 5th Place. I did bring copies if you didn't receive the email. Again, we have been working very closely with Transportation and Mobility to ensure that we have a successful central artery, if you will, through Riverside Park. Thankfully, the park at Riverside Park already has a very comprehensive network of sidewalks around it. You can successfully navigate over the swing bridge to the park, around the park. You can even get around to Grand Drive, which is one of our major projects with Transportation and Mobility. Safely. There's adequate sidewalks there. Mr. Shermer's block is a small block. It has maybe 5 or 6 homes on it, which none of those homes also have sidewalks. There would be no usage for that sidewalk, and quite frankly, I mean, if people are putting money in for the neighborhood, that it can go than this particular place. So I ask that you please take our consideration. We did vote again unanimously at our board meeting on May 15th to support his request. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. You've had a busy night tonight. Okay, sir, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or you're here for questions?
Just here for questions, in
Okay.
case you have anything.
So in that case, let me close the public hearing. Is there anybody bring it back to the board. Does anybody have any questions, or anybody have a motion, or either way?
I got a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I got a statement.
Okay. Before or after the motion, or?
Before the motion?
Yeah, let's make your statement. Go ahead.
What do you prefer?
Okay, so just happened that I went walking in your neighborhood the other day, because we pick neighborhoods arbitrarily walk, and when we drove up, there's a kids camp or whatever in the park right there, and there was a school bus, and the kids were lining up, and all these kids were sitting in the middle of the street to line up to get into the school bus. So I think of, forget nowhere else in your neighborhood except for on that one street and those 4 houses, when it's not like you have rolling lawns going to the street. They're all fenced off and everything else, and I think that's actually one place that should have a sidewalk so the kids could carefully cross and then get on and off a school bus for these park programs. So I think you actually should have a sidewalk over there.
Okay. Were you able to see on the, I guess, west side, some of the, like, the fences come directly up to the road? So
Right, but this would be a requirement as a rebuild, and like you're doing now. I'm not saying anyone should take down or do whatever, but if they're rebuilding it, that just happens to be one strip on the other side of the park that I think would really benefit from having a sidewalk.
Understood. The only thing that I would mention is that there is like a city swale in the road that actually it would effectively allow for kids to stand there in that it's not a sidewalk, but you see in that picture right there, if they wanted to. But I understand what you're saying.
But the way they did it, because there was nothing over there, is they put the bus on the other side of the street, and the kids are sitting literally in the middle of the street to get on the bus.
Okay.
And morons are sitting behind it, honking the little kids to get on the bus faster. And if you can keep morons from moving to the city, that would be a good idea. But we can't seem to do that. I just think it's for the future of the city and the park, it would make more sense.
Understood.
Thank you. Milton, did you have a question or comment, or just waiting for a motion?
Waiting for a motion.
Okay, Bob, in that case?
Mr. Chairman, I move agenda item 6, case POA 24050003, to grant a special exemption allowing relief from the requirement to install a sidewalk due to the fact that the applicant has demonstrated that due to the park sidewalks and electrical poles in the area, that would prohibit useful consideration for a sidewalk being necessary.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jamie?
Ms. Rathburn?
And put your microphone on too, please.
So you can hear me think?
Yes.
All right, call somebody else.
The wheels are turning, is it?
It's all right, call somebody else.
Yeah, can you come back to me? Sure.
I can. Caldwell?
Mr. Wolf?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Conway.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Ms. Mr. Stressler?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn? Yes.
Pass.
And Chair Elfman?
Yes.
Pass 5-2.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Everybody good to keep going?
What?
Anybody need pizza right away, or we keep on going?
Go.
I'm ready to keep on going. Okay.
It's better when it's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Next case, item number 7, case number 240500005, 3290 Northeast 33rd Street.
No.
Sorry, the address 3298 Northeast 33rd Street. I was looking at the LLC name. And hello there.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, I should say. Attorney Lawrence Black representing the applicant.
Okay, you're up.
All right, board, just a reminder, this is a special exception as well.
Okay, Lawrence, right before you go, I just want to do disclosures. So Milton? Doug?
Drove by.
Okay. Fred?
Site visit.
None for me. Bob?
None for Wolf.
Caldwell?
None.
None.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So this is an application for a special exception for a 2COP alcoholic beverage license to allow for the sale of alcoholic beverages, primarily in beer and wine, on this property. By historical context for you, those who haven't visited the neighborhood or aren't familiar with it, this is the neighborhood that is just north of East Oakland Park Boulevard, bordered by Coral Ridge Towers and A1A on the east. It's been an evolving neighborhood over the years. The city has invested a significant amount of money in renovating the streets by removing these the trees that are in the median and replacing them, and installing a parking system to enhance the neighborhood, which consists of restaurants and bars, and all of the within the building itself was initially a medical facility owned by the Leeds family, who's owned it for over 20 years. Dr. Leeds operated his practice there, and he was actually a very active member of the community. He was president of the North Beach Restaurants and Shops Association. I served as vice president for a while. And unfortunately, when he passed away, the building sat vacant for many, many years. Now his family has seen the need in the neighborhood to rejuvenate the corner where it is. It's a very quiet part. It's the western portion of the neighborhood. So in the eastern portion of the neighborhood, we have several bars, restaurants, and as we get down to this corner, it's a very quiet area. So Robert Leeds, his son, is seeking to open a billiards parlor. He's installed 9 tournament regulation billiards tables, and this application is for a special exception so that he can serve beer and wine to his patrons. We have almost universal approval in the neighborhood. We have submitted letters from 2 out of the 3 alcoholic beverage establishments that are within the 300-foot distance requirement. Plus, in addition, we've got letters from Boat Campers, Patricia's, the Boardroom Bar, which is a little further up. So the character of the neighborhood is certainly, this establishment is certainly conducive and fits in perfectly with the character of this neighborhood. So the addition of an additional beer and wine license will coincide perfectly with the consistent and current use of this neighborhood. It's a CB district, and it follows with the continuing and evolving nature of the entertainment, restaurant, bars that we're trying to sustain the neighborhood with. I say we have almost universal approval. The one person who may object to it, who is, I believe, will speak to you tonight, is the business that is contiguous and adjacent to the establishment, which is a bar called FL's, the building is owned by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Shapiro. He may tell you that he hasn't received notice of this hearing, but he has, in fact, your office has provided him with notice, and I had an opportunity to speak with him before the last canceled hearing in June. So he certainly had notice of this, and hopefully tonight he's heard my presentation to you and will understand that our use is consistent with everything in the neighborhood.
Thank you. We'll be calling you back up in a little bit. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak to this matter? Yes, sir. Please come up. Good evening. Now, you were sworn in, right?
I was.
Okay.
My name is Tim Olin. I'm an attorney. I'm here for Mr. Shapiro, and as stated earlier, he owns 3270 to 3280 LLC. They're a bar. They're a landlord, but there's a tenant that's a bar that's in their facility now. The application we didn't have mailed to us. We don't have really sufficient notice of this hearing. As best I was able to find online today related to the application, the statement goes over and over that the proposed use is in harmony with the neighborhood. But the neighborhood, well, yes, it's redeveloping, yes, it is changing, The existing bars and restaurants that are there all benefit from the existing code being enforced, which has a restriction on the number of alcoholic facilities that are within a geographic area. We're 9 or 71 feet away from this proposed use. Now, the Leeds family has owned this property for a long time. I agree that a pool hall in and of itself is probably consistent with the neighborhood, but the use of that license is very different. The use of that license is being used to detract and take customers away from the other businesses in the area that are relying on the licensing statute and the code to keep businesses a reasonable distance from each other. So at this time, we'd object.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for you, Counselor.
Go ahead, Cobal.
What type of liquor license does your client hold?
We have 4.
4 COPs. So you guys do hard liquor and beer and wine.
Yes.
So maybe a slightly different clientele.
People drink what they drink. It's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Don't disagree.
Question, counsel? Counsel?
Which counsel?
Who's your tenant?
I apologize.
Who's your tenant? What bar is it?
FL's?
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I guess you're going to have a couple more questions, Doug?
Nope, I have a question for the.
Okay, for the applicant?
I'll hang up here.
Okay. Before we ask you back, Lawrence, is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry, you wish to speak? Yes, please come up. And I'm going to have you, sorry, Lawrence, not yet.
You don't need to talk.
Change your mind?
That's Mrs. Leeds.
Okay. All right, then just hang out there for a minute. We'll close the public hearing, and we're going to bring it back to the board. Is there any questions of the applicant? And Doug, go ahead.
So it's a pool hall. So you're serving to your clients who are playing pool, or is there an open bar area where you're welcoming in other clients?
The space is has 9 billiard tables, billiard tables.
Right.
And so the bar area is very small. It's only designed to serve the people who are playing the game.
Okay, because it didn't look like a very big space.
Yeah.
It's what?
Yeah, it's nine tables in this space.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Caldwell?
Yeah, I'm not too good on what really small is, but when you say there's a small bar, it's only there to for the patrons playing pool. What is a really small bar?
How many seats? 6? 8. It has 8 seats.
Okay, that's really small.
Thank you.
Sorry. Bob?
And as I live in that relative neighborhood, and yes, there's a lot of competition in that neighborhood as the shops redevelop, and but I think it's great you're doing beach billiards. I think it'll be a killer business opportunity, especially a little more upscale and things like that. And I do think that adds another opportunity for business in the neighborhood, not to detract from the others. And Mrs. Lee, in the crowd, I had the opportunity to meet your husband a couple times. He's a great guy.
No, that's okay. Thank you, though. No, but I appreciate you being here.
Just want to recognize you.
Milton, do you have a question?
I don't have a question.
Oh, okay.
Ready to go shoot pool.
Okay.
Can I make a motion then?
You may.
I make a motion to approve the special exception distances between establishments.
Second.
But we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, in that case, Jamie, roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressa?
Yes.
And Chair Offman?
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is this a request for a break? Okay. We're going to take a 10-minute break.
get what
Bob.
you said.
Okay, we're back. Next case, case number 24050004, 2800 Yacht Club Drive. And I'd like to ask for disclosures first. So, Milton? Doug?
Visit and spoke to council.
Fred?
Same thing in the city, and the manager, general manager.
Okay, I had site visit and spoke to council. Bob?
None.
Colwell?
None.
Pat?
I spoke with Steve Tolbrook.
Okay. So, Steve, I'll let you introduce yourself and property.
Thank you very much. There we go. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for your service and your long hours of service as board members. I'd like to introduce myself and our applicant team. My name is Steve Tilbrook. I'm with Ackerman at 201 East Las Olas Boulevard. I'm speaking on behalf of the Commodores for Coral Ridge Yacht Club. Fred Roach is our main Commodore. He's not here tonight. We have Paul Sheeran here as our Vice Commodore. We have Kevin Cassell, our rear Commodore. We have Nadine Rockwell, our General Manager, is here tonight. Bill O'Donnell and John Washburn are also here. We also have Shane Grabsky from Flynn Engineering, our civil engineer. Robert Martone from Slattery Architects, and Ash Chirofa, our owner's representative construction manager. We've got a team. Not everybody needs to speak, but we're here to answer any questions and for support. So the applicant is Coral Ridge Yacht Club. Many of you may know Coral Ridge Yacht Club. Hopefully you had a chance to come by over the years. It's an old established club in Fort Lauderdale. The address is 2800 Yacht Club Boulevard. The zoning, interestingly, is parks or parks and open space zoning in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and we'll get into that in a second. The request is for a rear yard setback to allow a retractable awning over a patio that is an outdoor dining area. They're seeking a variance in order to have a shade for the outdoor dining area. And the best way to explain this request is to talk a little bit about who we are, who is the yacht club, how did we get here, where are we going, and why is this request important for and consistent with community standards and the criteria for a variance. So who are we? The Coral Ridge Yacht Club is a Florida not-for-profit corporation. It was established in 1947. It's membership-owned and operated. It's been a community asset and facility for the families of Fort Lauderdale for over 77 years. The club is very active in partnering with and supporting community activities. It's a particularly inclusive club. It's accessible, and it's affordable for families. And so, as an example of that, the Yacht Club partners with the city of Fort Lauderdale in providing youth sailing camp and programs for all city residents. It supports Scuba for Good, which is a hosting of dive lessons for adults and children with disabilities. They partner with and are part of the annual waterway cleanup. And the Coral Ridge Yacht Club is one of the first registered clean marinas in Fort Lauderdale, and it provides pump-out support for any vessels on the waterway. It partners also with the Chamber of Commerce for events throughout the year, in particular the annual Mayor's Breakfast, which was just a few weeks ago, and they host meetings and events for the Coral Ridge Association, the local neighborhood association. It's member-operated for families. It's inclusive, accessible, and affordable. How did we get here? So I'm going to go through a little bit of the history. The club was established in 1947. It's on a peninsula. I'll go back to the slide at the end of Coral Ridge Yacht Club Boulevard. It was originally zoned R4, and it was developed prior to incorporation in the city of Fort Lauderdale. In 1960, the clubhouse was rebuilt. This existing clubhouse was built in 1960. It's a Charles McCurahan mid-century modern design. Some of the aspects of the campus is that it's a compact campus with the parking on the perimeter, and it is oriented towards the waterway and the pool in order to create a compact, clean proximity between the clubhouse and what used to be the Point Bar, and we're now calling the Point. In 1972 was the 25th anniversary of the club, and the Point Bar was reconstructed at that time. In 2020, there was a so then the club went through a comprehensive redo process in 2020, and there was a conscious decision. There was several proposals to tear down all the buildings at the yacht club and build a new club. But the club made a conscious decision to preserve and enhance the existing structure and the existing facilities. It's a Charles McCurahan facility. There was a lot of comments about sort of mid-century modern preservation. They decided to keep the clubhouse, enhance it, and they put $4 million into redoing the clubhouse. The last part of that project is the Point Bar. What used to be the Point Bar is now called the Point. The question was, what do we do with it? How do you enhance it? It had a small permanent structure, which was the kitchen, and it had a large area that was covered by canopy outdoor dining. After significant analysis, there was a decision made you really couldn't reconstruct the Point Bar in its current location or without bringing it up to floodplain standards and building it. So the decision was made to build a new building at that location and to serve the existing pool and the existing clubhouse. This is the Point under construction. This is the point, the site photo of the site, along with, I really can't point to the picture so you can see it, but there's dockage along the waterfront and there's a marina on the sides. And parking is really on the east or the west side of the campus. This is the current zoning. You can see that, and I'm going to show you in a second how it's changed from what used to, I'll show you what used to be first. This is the pre-1997 zoning. As you know, the city of Fort Lauderdale in 1997 did a comprehensive rezoning of the city. They did away with all their existing residential zoning categories, and they created new zoning categories. The yacht club used to be zoned R4. R4 was the most intensive residential zoning in the city of Fort Lauderdale. It's turned into what's now RMH 60, which is 60 units per acre. But what the city did, and I don't know whether they told the yacht club at the time, was they took yacht clubs out of the R zonings, and the only place they allowed yacht clubs was in park zoning. So they changed the two yacht clubs in Fort Lauderdale, the Fort Lauderdale Yacht Club and the Coral Ridge Yacht Club. They rezoned them from R4 to P. And this is an example of the P zoning. You can see the P zoning comes over from Birch State Park, which has a very different character than Coral Ridge Yacht Club. So we are now trying to exist in a P zoning when the property and the campus was not built under a P zoning. So we've got a challenge there. How do you reconstruct and improve a facility when there's new setbacks, new requirements, and a new zoning? So let's keep going. So I'm going to show you, that's the aerial that shows the zoning. That's the old zoning. You can see how it changed. This is an example. This is a photo of what used to be. You can see the Point Bar, which was in the white awnings. It came right out to the water. It had a zero setback. And it was a larger facility. It had significant outdoor dining. It was right next to the pool. It was consistent with and in line with the clubhouse and the pool. It met the character for the area. And when the decision was made to rebuild the Point Bar and call it the Point, it had to be elevated, it had to be moved back so that the structure itself was outside the setback. This is another photo of what the Point Bar looked like. It had 3 awnings and there was a permanent structure on the west side, a small kitchen. Really wasn't up to modern standards. So to make it up to modern standards, we've got a new building. This is a survey from 2021 showing the existing Point Bar, the prior Point Bar. And I really can't show you, but you can see just to the north of the pool, I'm going to zoom in, just to the north of the pool in hash line is where there's a CBS building, which was a kitchen, and the rest of that rectangle is what was the Point Bar, went right out to the water. There were steps underneath the canopy, and there was zero setback. So the goal was to replace the point bar, and is to do it with a new building and do it according to code. It's very tough to do that with 25-foot setback along the waterway is not a minor setback. So how do we get there? How do we do it? So we went through the DRC process to get approved for a site plan, and this is the DRC approval from 2021. I'd like to focus in a little bit on it. Here we go. And show you there's several lines along the water, and I don't want to complicate things too much, but there is some uncertainty as to where exactly the property line is. There's 3 different lines. One is a platted property line. It's according to the plat from the 1950s, and that's the hashed line on this survey. And it's about 8 feet upland from the edge of the water. 8 feet out is the edge of the water's edge, the seawall line, and then another 3 feet out from that is where the submerged land lease starts. So the state leases to the yacht club a 20-foot area of submerged land for the dockage of vessels. So there's several different lines. Our request, and we worked with your zoning staff and your legal to determine how to measure this setback. And the determination was made, because we don't have documentation of exactly where the setback is to use the platted lot line, which is the most conservative and requires the greatest variance. So we're here for a 20-foot variance for this retractable awning within the 25-foot setback. But what I'm trying to say is that in reality, we believe that there's actually evidence, and that typically a setback is measured from the wet face of the seawall. There's an additional 13 feet that goes out to the wet face of the seawall. So we would argue that the variance is only 7 feet, but we're here requesting 20 feet in order to get this thing done. Why is this historically relevant? It's historically relevant. Why is this history relevant? Because the Coral Ridge Yacht Club is unique. It's unique in that it is oriented to the waterway. I'm going to take you through the site plan approval process. So we went through the site plan approval process, and then we went through an amendment to the site plan approval, because we actually went through a proper process. This is the site plan. There was an amendment to the site plan. These are the elevations. You can see on the far side there, the elevation includes the retractable awning. This is another photo elevation of the revised site plan that shows retractable awning. And the third. These are from the north, south, and east side, and from the very east. This is the set of amended plans from 2023. This is the amended site plan, and it references retractable awning on the east side of the building. It references it as under separate permit. Typically, awnings like this are permitted separately because the subcontractor is responsible for that permitting component. And these are the elevations from that. And you can see on the last set of plans, this is an approved building permit plan. It says approved by the building division. And this one that includes an elevation that shows the retractable awning is also approved from 2/17/2023. So the status of the point bar, why is this important? So why is it important? Is because the Coral Ridge Yacht Club's site is unique. It's uniquely oriented to the water. The buildings have close proximity to the water. The existing clubhouse does not have a 25-foot setback. It's about a 15-foot setback for the 2-story clubhouse that's there. And there's active uses on the waterway. That's the whole point of a yacht club, is to use the waterfront and make it an active component, not to be set back 25 feet in a passive park setting. It is to actually have people on the water actively using that space. The yacht club zoning is also unique. The yacht club was built, Coral Ridge Yacht Club was built prior to incorporation in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Then it was zoned R4, and then out of the blue, it was rezoned to park, which is the most restrictive zoning in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Coral Ridge Yacht Club's architecture is also unique. It is uniquely mid-century modern. It is uniquely Charles McCurahan. And it is uniquely oriented to the water and to the pools and the point bar. It's a compact, consistent campus. I'll take you back to the photo. where everything is oriented to the water with close proximity to the water. And because the Point Bar is unique, it provides outdoor dining on the water. That is the goal. It's an outdoor restaurant facility. It competes with other outdoor restaurants like Shooters, like Kalou's, that all have dining directly on the water. In order to provide, it also provides shade. It provides shade for the pool. It provides a shaded dining experience, and you have to have shade in the current environment. And it's consistent with the rest of the campus. It's consistently close to the water. It's consistent line. You really can't move the Point 25 feet back from the pool because it wouldn't be able to serve the pool. The parents that use the Point wouldn't be able to watch their kids while they're in the pool. I'm going to keep going, try to make it quick to get to a conclusion. So the status of the Point is a DRC approval in 2021. Building permit was issued 2023. There was a variance. The contractor for the awning, based upon the 2023 site plan amendment, was authorized to produce the awning, and they did that in 2023. It was delivered in 2024, February 2024, and they concurrently sought a permit while they installed the awning. So that's part of how we got here. It was during a construction process. There's a rush to get things done by summertime, and the contractor that does these installations does them as a matter of course. Fully expected to receive the permit. They went ahead and installed it, and then the permit was denied because of the way that it is oriented towards the water and the setback requirement. The proposed site plan, this is the proposed site plan that shows the awning, and this is a blow-up. It shows the awning going out to the edge of the patio, which is a 20-foot awning, 20-foot 5-inch, and it requires a 20-foot variance into the 25-foot setback. There is we would argue there's an additional 8 to 13 feet beyond that, so there's actually a 13-foot setback, but based upon the platted lot line, it requires a 5-foot variance. These are some photos of the existing structure. It's almost finished. We can't wait to start operating it and dining out by the waterway. This is a photo that shows the landscaping and the awning in place. It's a retractable awning. It's pushed up. Some would argue that it's not retractable. Those are permanent. There's a permanent structure there, but the awning itself moves back. This is a view from the waterway. You can see our notice sign. This is a view from the north. There's a large section of the restaurant on the north side that's not covered by the awning. We did significant outreach and support within the community. We had unanimous support from the Coral Ridge Association. We have several letters of support in the record. We've reached out to our commissioner and other members of the community. People want to use this facility. They want us to get it open. There is a desire for us to complete and make this facility an active and contributing part of the community. The plan is to preserve and enhance the existing campus. The plan was to preserve the orientation and shade along the waterway and an active waterfront. The plan is to provide a comfortable and safe environment, which includes shade. And the plan is complementary to the pool, the clubhouse, and the existing patio facilities. It's also built in reliance upon the building permitting process, the approvals that have been granted. And finally, the Coral Ridge Yacht Club wants to continue to be an accessible and contributing amenity for the community and families in the community. We have a few people that will talk about what we do for families, and replacing the shade that was there historically is an important component of that. Providing a safe and compatible environment is why we're here, and we're seeking your support. We can go into greater detail on the uniqueness, on the criteria, but I'll wait for that question if you, it's also in our backup materials.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak?
We have a few members.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before the public speaks, I think that the presentation was so well done and comprehensive, and we have the letters from the community that I'm not sure, in the history of it, we've got it, we get what you want.
Summary of it.
That's right, not yet, sir. Site visit, Bob?
No.
Okay, Caldwell?
No.
And Pat? No. Okay. Sir, let you state your name in relation to the property, and you were sworn in?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yes, my name's William Catron. I go by Bill. We bought the property in 1989. It's in Rio Vista, 1630 Southeast 10th Street. And we employed an architect, and he developed plans, and we reviewed it, and we were looking for our home to be built there. We filed for permits. We hired licensed contractors. We fast forward to today. We had some new fences put in, the neighbor and I, and we're in the process of thinking about selling. And I figured, I'm going to get a current survey. Well, lo and behold, I found out that the house is actually twisted ever since. So if you looked at the house with the sides of this house, if you interpolate from them, though, you will see that, for example, the southeast corner of the house is like, I think it's like 10 foot .07 or so. And the southwest is into the setback just a little bit. I think it's, I don't know, there's a very extensive surveying that was done on the west side of the house that's in the package. And there's a blow up, and then there's an attachment where I go in and I show in red the exact amount of encroachment, which varies anywhere from a ½ inch in the northwest corner to down in the southwest corner, which tonight I learned I could go 3 foot into the setback on an unenclosed porch. I guess that applied to it too. So basically didn't max out the house to be the setbacks, because when you look at the front of the house, there's a section of it where we're 30 feet in on I think 60% of the front of the house. The garage is 25 feet in from the front setback. The rear setback, where we vary between I think 27 and 30 feet to a lower porch area that I guess that could be another 3 feet. So the total coverage of the house is a lot less than what would be allowed under the code and still have setbacks. This was not something that we contributed to, and we find ourselves in this situation. I've got the original plans, and I was going to submit pictures of the original construction to address any concerns that somebody was thinking that, well, maybe you guys did something to the house after it was built and surveyed and CO'd, but
there's no signage when I was there. Bob? No? Caldwell? Okay.
Board, before we start, this is a rehearing, and it's my understanding that we don't typically do rehearings that often, so I'm just going to read the standards for the record.
Please.
For the rehearings, what you're considering is whether
rehear it, or we listen to the applicant first, or that's our choice?
The applicant will present evidence, and then it's your choice to whether you want to set it for another rehearing, or if you want to deny that you want to deny setting it for a rehearing at a future date.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarification. In that
So,
case,
with that prelude, we do appreciate this opportunity to bring this request for a rehearing to you tonight. As you'll see when I go through this presentation, we believe that approving a rehearing is necessary here. As you may recall from April, Peter Shoemaker, my associate, and I weren't here, but the facts came hard to do anything with this property. But the rest of the neighborhood was built starting from the late 50s all the way through. The latest houses you see are new, and they're on the other side of the water on the east.
Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Again, what is your position as why we made an error? And I think I was on the wrong this side of the vote at that meeting, I think. But you're making a presentation again over the reason for variance. And this, in my belief, I think it ought to be centered on what was the error this board made originally in denying your request.
Sure. And again, all these things are, again, shaded. But the what I wanted to focus on, which I think wasn't discussed adequately in April, was the years of reliance that this applicant had on the city approval process and that impact. Because there's a lot of discussion, and you may remember, about a set of plans that showed the ultimate canopy that wasn't reviewed it wasn't processed through zoning. But what happened way in advance of that is a set of plans that was approved by zoning, and that had the exact same issue, and that's what led this property owner to rely on the city's approvals for nearly 4 years. So let me show you that. So I'll move quickly through that other slide. So all right, so first set of plans was submitted in October of 2019. In June of 2020, those plans were approved by zoning. That 2019 plan had a roof overhang over the pool that had the exact same issue. It wasn't the exact same shape, but it had the exact same issue that the ultimate canopy did, which was that it was in the setback. So that was on the original set of plans that were approved, reviewed by zoning and approved in mid-2020. August 2020, that permit issues, right? So right at that point, from June 2020 on, the property owner is relying on that approval to move the project forward. So plans were revised in January of 2021. This is where the actual design of the overhang changed. But the setback variance, of course, had already been in place under the previous version of the plan. That's the set of plans, as far as we can tell in our research that we've done since the last hearing, that weren't processed through zoning. Revision 2, which is a minor revision, was filed in January of 2022. And then finally, obviously the house gets built, and then upon final inspection in May of 2023, the variance is recognized, right? So again, we have from October of 2019, when this original plans are submitted, that had this variance in it inadvertently, and was approved by zoning, and then it was discovered in 2023. Then, of course, the only remedy for that property owner is to come to this board. So, obviously, from our client's point of view, you've got 3 years of reviews, inspections, et cetera, none of which surface this issue. And they go on and they spend a ton of money in building this house with that issue in place. So I do have a full discussion of what we consider also the actual rationale for the variance. I can decline to do that if you don't want to hear that at this point. But the main point we're bringing up now on this request for rehearing is basically that in reviewing the April hearing, it was unclear to us that the board had the full picture of the permitting history and knew that this issue had been in place from the very outset and had been approved by zoning. So with that, I'll close and ask for your respectfully request a rehearing of this application. We're here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. You said that, Counselor, you said that the shade structure or overhang had changed at some point, but it was always encroaching, or the shape of it had changed.
That's correct.
If I remember correctly, the shape of it changed, and I'm just going back from memory, but it wasn't just the overhang.
To get some advice from council, we've already voted on this, and anything that we do or say or the representative says could be used against us. And I need to get some counsel and clarity as to what we are doing and where we're going with this.
Sure. Again, the decision has been made already the rehearing is necessary in order to correct an error, or to consider new evidence or information not considered by the board when the application for variance or special exception was denied. Such evidence or information having been neither known to the applicant nor discoverable or obtainable through reasonable diligence
vice chair? Yeah, we still got the vice chair. So all in favor, we said aye.
I just want to point out that his problem only started with